starting to earn that respect back, or when things started to change again with her?
When one starts to participate in their own recovery and is making change and they're acting differently and they're talking differently, those changes by people that know us best, they see that pretty quickly. And it, obviously takes time before they can say, is this real? Is this actually happening? But for the most part, I think it starts to happen pretty quickly. People get, supportive. In some cases, maybe some people won't be so supportive for a while, but it starts to happen pretty quickly because one thing you stop doing is causing more damage.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sobriety Diaries, a video podcast where we share powerful stories of recovery that inspire hope and offer support to those affected by addiction. I'm your host, Nate Kelly, creator of the show and recovering alcoholic 8.5 years from my last drink. I'm also a lover of human connection. I started the show during the pandemic when I lost that connection, and it has grown beyond my wildest dreams. We just surpassed 1 million downloads. So thank you so much for that support, and let's open today's diary. Today is a story of triumph and success in both recovery and in business. We're talking to the founder of Kirk's Probiotic Soda, a recovering addict and entrepreneur, Kirk Buxton. Kirk, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Nate. I'm excited to be here.
I am as well. I saw on your website that you started the business with $100 and some IKEA supplies. It reminded me really of kind of a fresh start, a clean slate, much like recovery. So I'm excited to hear about your personal journey and how that affected your entrepreneurial journey. We were introduced, I guess, to one another through a mutual friend, Alexis, who's been on the show. So yeah, thanks for your time today. I'm excited to dig into things. So I like to start, getting to understand a bit more about your personal journey, your own addiction and recovery. So I'd like to hear more about that and how it sort of, where you are in your journey, what sort of maybe prompted you in the throes of addiction to seek a path to recovery. So let's start there. You can jump in wherever it makes sense to kind of paint the picture for our audience. We have a lot of listeners in early recovery, so I guess just keep that in mind as we're digging into our conversation today. So I guess what did prompt you to seek a path to recovery?
Ultimately, just became like it seemed like I had no other options. So I honestly had believed, well, in my addiction as it got worse and worse, and that I was kind of like being punished for past deeds, and once an addict, always an addict. Like I literally was like, I'm just going to die a heroin addict. And, so I accepted that was going to be my fate, and that didn't end up happening. And I was really just done with, I was just done with the suffering. Like I just didn't want to carry on living like that anymore, and it got to be so difficult and so depressing. And I just reached out one day, and I was like, I gotta make a change, and I want to try and get clean, and I'm gonna put some effort into it. And really, that's kind of like what the spark was. Really, just out of desperation, that really initiated the change.
Yeah, we do reach that level of desperation, right? Where it
Yeah,
just feels like, battered and bruised. And for myself, at least, I too reached that point where, it was like, if I don't wake up tomorrow, that's fine. I didn't necessarily want to die, but it just got to a point where it was exhausting and kind of Groundhog Day, the same thing every day. So
yeah,
I really understand that perspective.
yeah, yeah. Purely just out of desperation. It was horrible.
I was just going to ask what your treatment looked like, or, after reaching out for help
Yeah,
that day,
yeah.
what did the next few months look like?
So I'll just preface that by saying I think I've been to 14 or 15 different treatment centers and recovery houses leading up to it. So,
Got it. So you
like
were
my,
kind of familiar with the community.
yeah, it was a process, and going in and having some clean time in previous years. Like right now, I'm 7 years clean as I sit here, and my opiate addiction started at 26. I'm 51 today. And I had periods in there where I had some years clean and then go back to using it. But this time was it was like I said, and for me, it was actually a case where like I'm going to commit suicide. Like I really made a legit attempt in my life. So when I reached out for help, I was actually in the Hope Center at Langens Gate Hospital in North Vancouver. I was in the mental ward there. They had locked me up because I attempted a real severe attempt on my life. And while I was sitting in there, I wasn't, I had a broken neck from the car crash. And at that point, when they get there, I'm still not convinced I'm going to get clean. But what really motivates that moment to go in and say, I'm sitting there and I'm watching like my mom at the end of my hospital bed with insurance papers, worrying about who's gonna like how's Kirk gonna fund this? Like he's not working, he's gonna need money, he's gonna need insurance money from his previous job and then I just saw that and I was like something just clicked to me and I was just like, you got to participate in your life, dude. You got to help this situation. It wasn't even about me in that moment. It was about seeing the true impact of my addiction in that moment on my mom specifically, and to a larger degree, that was just going everywhere. So in that moment, I just made a decision and a commitment to change. So that happened, and I was like trying to help her, and then I made a phone call to somebody I knew at the last store recovery society, Jessica there, and I'd known her for a long time, and I let her know what was going on. I need some help, and then she hooked me up with Scott, who is now my sponsor now. He's been my sponsor ever since, and kind of came down there. He picked me up and signed me out and take me to meetings, and then eventually got released from there. And then I went to the treatment center, and that's how it began. And that from the moment like I had to quit smoking before, so I just quit smoking while I was still in that facility. I wasn't gonna be able to
Ooh, that's
go.
tough. I feel like people start smoking in treatment.
They do. They start smoking and drinking way too much coffee.
That's
These
right.
days, it's energy drinks. So
Yeah.
they go ahead, right? Yeah. So I was just really committed. So I mean, I just did it, and it was a matter of like, I just said to myself, "You got to do this. Like, put everything you got into it," and that's what I did.
It's a good point you make about seeing how our behaviors affect other people and the people around us, and seeing your mom having to deal then with consequences of your own actions, I'm sure had to be tough. And we may not have the self respect or the love for ourselves at that point, in our addiction. But once we see how it's affecting others, I think that can spark something in people. And if that's how we, start our journey, if that's what sort of, flips that switch for us, then I think that's, something to think about and something to accept if you're starting to see that with
Mhm.
your loved ones.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a moment of empathy that just
Yeah.
bleeds through. You can't hide it. You're like unreal.
Hey, recovery warriors. I wanted to introduce a new way to connect with you, our amazing community, and the reason I turn on the microphone week after week and create episodes that inspire hope for those affected by addiction. We created a voicemail line for your recovery questions, issues you may be having with your journey, mental health concerns, or sobriety tips and tricks for others. Any and all of the above. Hey, you could even just call to say hi. We will be incorporating these into some upcoming episodes, and this is a way for you to contribute hope to our listeners. I absolutely love hearing from you guys, so please utilize this feature to add your voice to our show. Talk soon. Call 707-385-1595 to leave us your message today. That's 707-385-1595, or check today's show notes for a direct link. I think it's a good point too in recovery. One of the stories I tell then is starting to gain that trust back and starting to get that respect back from folks that we
Mhm.
affected in our addiction that perhaps we didn't think about. Do you remember any, or I guess with your mom, starting to earn that respect back, or when things started to change again with her?
Like there's a lot of hope that comes from your family. My mom wasn't the only one affected, but she was like that trigger point. It was obviously I was affecting everyone in my family, but I think when one starts to participate in their own recovery and is making change, and they're acting differently and they're talking differently, those changes by people that know us best, they see that pretty quickly, and it obviously takes time before they can say, "Is this real? Is this actually happening?" But for the most part, I think it starts to happen pretty quickly. People get supportive. In some cases, maybe some people won't be so supportive for a while, but it starts to happen pretty quickly because one thing you stop doing is causing more damage. So that has paused, and that's a relief for everybody around you. Like, oh my God, this is like, you had a moment here. And then they have the hope, and then you just keep building on that hope with uh, positive action after positive action, staying clean and being involved in recovery. And over time, they get to see how your life has changed, and naturally, you begin to participate more in their lives, and they're around you more. But I will say to this, even after 7 years, there might be something where I could kind of get a sense that if if even if I might be not feeling well or something for a day, they'd be like, "Are you okay?" Like there's still going to be those like hidden undertones of like fear from those around you. So I really just recently became aware. I was like, wow, like even though I feel great in my recovery, some people still have moments where they're like, they don't forget either. They still have those
Right.
memories of going through that with you. So
So you mentioned having a sponsor. So I assume that
yeah.
you're working, a 12-step program. I mentioned that we do have listeners in early recovery or who may still be struggling. Um, in addition to 12-step work, are there any other resources that have been influential in your recovery that you'd like to share? Or I guess let's touch on how impactful having a sponsor and participating in a 12-step program has been for you.
Yeah, so I have used a little bit of outside help in early recovery. I was at the treatment center. There's also like some counseling available separate from like say your caseworker and stuff. So we're able to have some conversations there. And I know a lot of people that do reach out outside that are in recovery and they seek other avenues. So whatever resources one needs and wants to access, I would suggest definitely like don't be afraid. Just go for it. And if it is something that you find like that didn't really help me at all, then you just try it and you keep moving on. But yeah, I say for me, like the greatest thing has been like having a sponsor and someone to really just show me what a life of recovery. And for me, it's Narcotics Anonymous, and there's other people in other fellowships and all doing 12 steps. Um, but it's been instrumental, especially in the beginning, because I didn't know how to live life anymore. So imagine, I owned houses or owned a home and vehicle investments, all those things. And I lost all those things through addiction. And over time, so when I get clean, now I have a sponsor, but I don't know how to manage my life anymore. I need someone just to like bounce ideas, like, what should I do? What do I do today? Do this, do this, do this. Like, just kind of walk me through it, hold my hand, teach me. It's really like,
Yeah. Our
you're
decision
like a
making
child.
clearly needs some approval, right? Especially in those
Yeah.
early stages.
Yeah. And then let's include someone. Like, I find the more people I include in my decisions, the better the results. And because I'll still have a tendency to want to serve me as
Yeah.
opposed to serve the community at times, right? So there's that ever ongoing internal dialogue. It just so the sponsor was just super great. Going through the set of steps and then just part of my everyday life in the early decisions. And even today, like I still talk to him or message him on a regular basis. We share the same home group, so I've known him a long time, and those relationships they really help. Someone to turn to, and like you're not alone. How do we do this? Let's do it. Yeah.
Definitely not
So
alone.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, we talk a lot about different modalities or paths to recovery. There's no sort of magic pill, linear path
Mhm.
for every person. But I think the one constant that I hear in talking to, so many people in recovery is the community and is the support of other people who get it.
Yeah, understand you. And when you say those certain things, they understand what you're saying.
Right.
And that's important because they just understand you and you understand them as well. Because you're there for them too in that community.
And people that, you would have never thought that you had anything in common with, or that wouldn't understand you, based
Yep.
on, uh, society's standards, I guess. I met in recovery. I went to a state funded recovery center, and I met some of the most amazing people that I'm still, best friends with today. That looking at us, you wouldn't think that we had anything in common, and we have the most in common of anyone that's in my life.
Yeah. And I imagine if it was like you guys similar to ours, is that when you come through and you create those initial bonds in early recovery, that there's just a bond that is created that is uniquely strong. And I can't really put a figure, but it's so tightly knit because you've come through something together from like nothing, what it feels like to build and build and build and do it together.
That's right.
It's really unique in that way. It's really special. And I too am friends with the same people for years now that I initially got clean with.
Hey, podcasters, are you ready to turn up the volume on your podcast? Let's talk about taking your show from just okay to unforgettable. I'm Nate Kelly, creator and host of the Sobriety Diaries and founder of Pod Studio, a full service podcast production studio. And we're looking for a select few hosts who are ready to level up your podcast and scale your brand. Whether you're a seasoned host or just getting started, our team specializes in production and editing, as well as marketing that gets your message heard and creates lasting partnerships that, you guessed it, can monetize your show. Audio is king. So we'll start by making sure your episodes sound crisp, your message is crystal clear, and your audience growing with every episode. We offer different packages and service levels to fit any budget and guarantee our results. Head over to podcastnate.com/services or click the link in today's show notes for more information, and we'll see you on the charts. So let's talk probiotic soda. Uh,
Probiotics.
I want to talk about that journey as well as an entrepreneur. I respect the hustle. Now, I'm curious if this probiotic sort of nature of your business, did that stem from health issues that you had in addiction or recovery? Or I guess let's talk about that process in Kirk's
Yeah.
probiotic sodas.
Yeah, it's a good question. So while I was living in transitional living at the treatment center, so I also started running a meal prep business. So a little background: while I was a client there, actually, there's guys that start going back to work, and you have to make they got to make their own lunch every day. The food's provided, but not everybody wants to make a lunch. So I started making guys lunches for $5 a day, while I was a client still. So it was great because I
The
didn't have any
hustle.
money. I was going through, yeah, I was in a bankruptcy. I'm like, this is great. So
Yeah.
I had a little sandwich business, and a few guys were like, so end of the week they'd all pay me, and I was pretty flush with cash considering I didn't need any. And then I started actually what happened is a meal prep business out of that facility. They allowed me to use the commercial kitchen, rent it, and so I'm eating really healthy now, and I'm into yoga, I'm into running. The meals I eat are super clean, um, but there's an issue that I rarely realize. I'm like, why am I always bloated? Like the only time I'm not really bloated is when I wake up in the morning,
Hmm.
and then I'm also like, my mood is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like flat. I have a really good life. I'm looking at my life, and this is great, but I don't really feel a whole lot of joy, and for the most part, but I don't feel terrible either. I'm just kind of flatlined. So So I go to the doctor and he gives me probiotic pills and antidepressants initially. And I'm like, I do it for a bit and I go back. I'm like, doctor, like, these just aren't working. And he's like, no, Kirk, just keep taking them. I'm like, you know what? I'm not taking these anymore. So I stopped. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not really one who likes to use medicine to like doctors and prescription drugs. I don't really like to use it to solve a health issue. I'm like, my own business at the time was food as medicine in the meal prep. So I was like, I'm going to find something that's going to actually naturally solve this problem. And that's how, and it started with actually me making dairy kefir with a roommate in a transitional living. And that felt great. And then, I just go onto YouTube and I'm like, all of a sudden there's like this water kefir that's fizzy like a pop. You can make it with fruits. I'm like, that sounds delicious. I'm
Yeah.
not a big dairy guy. And I made it and I drank it and I was like, this is unreal. And I was like the bloating went away within minutes. And I just started drinking it and drinking it. And then a couple of ladies that were buying, friends, and were buying meals off me. I said, hey, try this. And I was in the kitchen and they're there. And then they're like, buy this off you? This is great. And that was the start of it. And yeah, I didn't have any money really at the time either, So that $100 was just to like buy some jars and some sugar. And I got to drive. My friend Delphine drove me to the IKEA because I didn't have a car.
Love that.
And yeah, the experiments began. And even at that point, it wasn't going to really be a business. I just was so passionate about what I was doing. Like I wasn't thinking, hey, I'm going to make a bunch of money or this is going to be a great long-term business. It was just like I just loved how it was helping me, and it was helping them. I was like, this is really something.
It's so crazy how much our gut health is tied to our overall health physically and
Yeah,
particularly mental health as well. I mean, you're the prime example of that. I don't think a lot of people realize that our gut holds so much power over the rest of our body, right?
yeah, it really, really does. And the more the more science gets into it, the more research I do, and the more I start to understand it. It's just we're just basically bugs. Our whole body, we are just literally a bunch of little bugs.
Oh, it's
And it's
crazy.
super interesting. I know, right? People look at it like, oh my God. It's like, I mean, those same bugs that are in our guts live on our skin, those lactobacillus. Like, they're super important to our health, and the diversity of them is really important. And you're right. And the research is speaking towards mental health and, like, um, you know, could it be a simple strain missing in the gut or two strains or a combination? And then, your mental health, whatever underlying issue can be resolved. The future medicine is moving that way. So, way beyond my level of knowledge and capabilities, but I'm just happy to be a part of like something that's having a positive impact on people's lives, and it's super interesting.
So, do you ship the sodas? Where can we find them? I know you're in Vancouver. I'm in the States. Is it
Yeah.
available? Um, I
Yes.
guess worldwide or Canada, US? Tell us where we can find it.
So North America, we ship probiotic shots. So we ship those anywhere in North America. Shipping's included. Just go to our website, www.kirksprobioticsoda.com. So that's the one product that we currently ship anywhere in North America. The actual sodas that we have in glass bottles, we don't ship those just due to like the nature of the product. Right now, it's in glass, so it's dangerous. It's very expensive to ship.
I bet.
But in Vancouver, so in our website has a listing of our stores as well. So in the Loblaws change, some Save On Foods, superstores in BC, it's available. There's so many stores that for me to list them all off would be
Yeah.
the best way is go to the website or send me a message. Go, hey Kirk, I live here, and we're currently just expanding across Canada, so Alberta over the next few months, and then we'll keep creeping across. But we do, so we're going to get these out of bottles. They'll go into cans. Have some new products coming out, some new flavored shots as well, and those we will be able to ship throughout North America, providing it just costs whatever the shipping costs it costs. And over the next couple of years, I hope to be selling into the United States as well and expanding the business. So we're just making some changes so that we can really grow and scale it. This is a refrigerated product, so there are some challenges around that. So
Sure.
finding shelf stable and yeah,
Cool. Well, I'll link the website in today's show notes. Make sure you check that out. And especially if you're in Canada, I've got a couple Canadian uh, counterparts, Alexis being one of them. How did you
yeah,
guys meet?
recovery. So I've
Yeah.
known Alexis actually, man, since she was like 18.
Wow.
So yeah, like I first came into the community of New West like 2001, I think, 2000, 2001, and that's around. And she was there, and she was
Yeah.
just a teenager then. Yeah, so that's how long I've
Cool.
known Alexis. Yeah,
So
it's wild.
what are some short-term goals of Kirk? I know a lot of your goals are probably tied to the business, but personally, it sounds
Well,
like you're in a great place. Do you have some a
yeah,
vision board or things we can uh, kind of give some hope with your goals?
yeah. So my goals are largely personal,
Good.
and I do that because how I set up myself, my personal goals will ultimately, how I believe, dictate my business and everything else. Like that's where
Absolutely. Yeah.
it all comes from my core values. My mission, my personal mission, which ties into the business's mission of like helping people and staying that and being community oriented and really being that ultimately not about some big profit driven empire because it's for me that's not inspirational. I can't get up every day to do that. So yeah, I do have some really this year some because when I started the business, it really took a toll on my time. Like I had no idea, and we bootstrapped this business without a lot of money to get things going. So it's a lot of time, and it really drained a lot of my personal resources. And so what I'm doing now is spending a lot more time, like making sure that I get up and recovery is the first thing I do, be it like prayer and meditation. Make sure I'm doing some writing and putting that recovery aspect of my life first and foremost so that I'm in a better position to do the things that I love to do and to be happy doing them. So, um, yeah, that's the goal. It's like make sure recovery's first, stay focused on it, remember the mission, help people, and just keep going after making personal changes and just getting myself better spiritually and then see where it goes. And the more I do of that, it just seems everything else gets better. So I don't have to work as hard at everything else because things just start to come together. Good people come into your life. Good things happen. Life's more enjoyable.
It's so
And
true.
then,
If we don't have that
yeah,
strong core, things around us are not going to succeed. And what you're putting out into the world is not your best. So I think that's great advice.
yeah, yeah. And then I think it make sure I surround myself with some really great people. So
Yeah,
I'm really conscious that I've been doing that, adding some good people to my life and making sure that not only are they good people to my life, but I bring value to theirs. So those things have become really important of late. Big
love
drive
that.
towards that. Yeah, and doing lots of recovery, make sure that we always remember where we come from, right? So wherever we can help somebody, we help somebody.
Kirk, I always like to leave the listeners with a bit of hope. And I did
Hmm.
mention a lot of them are in early recovery. So,
Yeah.
um, how would if someone's listening and still struggling, um, what words of hope can we leave them with, and perhaps spark a little something in their brains today? A message from Kirk.
Yeah. I struggled for a long time, so it really hits home because it was like, I would say to anybody who is struggling is the first thing, like, forget what your brain's telling you right now. Like, it can get better, it can change. You can find freedom from addiction. Go to a meeting, make a call today. Just do today. Don't worry about what's happening and all the other crises that are going on because they're going to keep going on and getting worse. So just focus and make a call today. And I'll leave with this one thing. My dear friend of mine who struggled for like the last 14 years, we got clean together. I started sponsoring, and I think he's 69 years old. So I just flew out to Edmonton and gave him his 1 year cake. And that gentleman never. It just seemed like it was not going to happen. So he's living his best life now, and I'm living my best life now. We see it all the time. So I would say don't lose hope. Just make the call today. If you do it today, at least you start to see it moving in the right direction. And people can always DM me if they need to have a conversation as well. I've had people come to the facility and just have recovery conversations. I never even met them, but we just sit down and start talking.
Great, great,
Yeah,
great hope, great experience, strength and hope coming from a fellow
yeah,
12 stepper, Kirk Buxton. Kirk's probiotic sodas will link everything in today's show notes. Thank Alexis for me. I'm so glad we crossed
I
paths,
will.
Kirk. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Nate. It was great.
We'll talk soon, my friend.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks so much, friends, for listening today and for downloading our episodes. Hopefully, you heard something that resonates with you and inspires you to help others. Check out all of our video interviews at youtube.com/Nate Kelly. You can also find me on all social platforms at Podcast Nate. Please share our podcast with one person in your life who may need it today. Addiction can be so isolating, but just know you are never alone. Lastly, friends, I have a favor to ask. Please rate and review the Sobriety Diaries on whatever platform you're currently listening on. It really helps the show gain new listeners and traction with the algorithm. Just click on our show profile, scroll down to rate and review. It just takes a few seconds. Hit the subscribe button while you're there so you never miss an upload. We're back with new episodes every Wednesday. Remember, everyone has a story. Yours could help save a life. Bye, friends.